Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Two-Way Tonight. Thank you for joining. My name is Mark Halperin, and I will be your host this evening, at least on a temporary basis. As always, we welcome your participation. This platform is called Two-Way for a reason. So we'd like you, if you're here on the Two-Way platform, to raise your hand if you're watching on X or YouTube. Don't raise your hand and don't put smack in the chat. We have two guests tonight who are really keen observers of and participants in Biden or Trump rather 2.0, and looking forward to hearing from them. And I'll say again, if you're here and you're not a Trump supporter, you don't like anything connected to Donald Trump, don't hate on our two guests. Show them the presumption of grace and learn from them because they're going to give us extraordinary insight that I'm looking forward to hearing about the policies and culture and practices and personalities of this new/old administration. We've never, in our lives, we've never seen an administration come back. Some of the people are old, some are new, and these two gentlemen have extraordinary perspective on the administration. Ed Martin will be here. He's currently working at the Justice Department. He was nominated by President Trump to be the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, one of the most important prosecutorial positions in America. The Senate had other thoughts, so now he's doing other things in the Justice Department. We'll talk to him about that. And someone who I'm super eager to talk to, Chess McDowell, who is the managing partner of Checkmate Government Relations, is one of the, I call him the IT lobbyist, but he's moved quite up high, far and fast in the firmament of Washington, D.C. for those needing help to navigate the new government. So they'll both be here, run through the news of the day, some before they get here and some with them. And then again, we'd love for your questions and comments. So please raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. Let's switch things up a little bit. There's a lot of news, but we'll do it with our guests. And let's bring in the aforementioned Chase McDowell, who's not only making his two-way debut, but lots of things he does these days are for the first time in Washington. Welcome in, sir. Very grateful to you for spending time with us.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
So there's a Wall Street Journal piece about you that pretty much, how long ago did that run? A couple weeks ago, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, pretty much anyone who's got a shingle out in Washington, D.C., they would say to their PR representative, "Get me a story like that." It was just like basically a work wanted advertisement courtesy of Dow Jones, and it said you're a very hardworking, ambitious young man from North Carolina who was a lobbyist in the North Carolina legislature, and you've moved up to Washington, D.C., and as I think you say, south of Mason-Dixon line, you don't seem to be doing too badly. So tell people the story of why you moved from North Carolina to Washington.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and this is a phenomenal podcast, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Really, this I've been a lobbyist for 10 years, mostly in North Carolina. And after the election, prior to the election, but going into the election, I saw a real need in DC for there to be to bring kind of the way that we lobbied in North Carolina to DC, which is hard work, it's honesty, and it's authenticity. And I felt like that was really lacking on K Street. I've interacted with a lot of DC lobbyists over the years and shared clients with them, and it felt like it was a good opportunity. But most importantly, my loyalty to the president. If the president wants to continue the MAGA movement, that's got to extend to K Street. That's got to extend to corporate interest and corporate America, and that's where I feel like we can be helpful to the president.
And you didn't work at all in Washington during the first Trump term, is that right?
I was never even a page in Washington.
Yeah. So tell me about the culture of Washington as you're observing it. You're going to a lot of parties, I know, just because you get invited and you're a sociable fella. So what's it like? What's Washington like for people who've never lived there, worked there? What's it like?
Well, it's certainly the swamp. I think the president was right about that the first time he coined that term. But it's a fascinating place, and it's very unique in the way that there's so much going on all the time, and the things that are going on are dramatically influencing policy across the whole world. And it's really a fascinating place to be. I remember the first time I came to Washington, D.C. was in 1996. I drove up with my dad. I was 7 years old. We listened to Space Jam on a cassette tape the whole way there and the whole way back. And it was for Mike McIntyre, former Congressman Mike McIntyre, swearing in. My dad was real influential in his campaign, one of the last Blue Dog Democrats from North Carolina. And I just remember being amazed when I was 7 years old. And I remember coming back through college and just how intense DC is, how consequential everything is. And it's a very cool place to work, a very unique place to be a part of.
Talk about your relationship with Don Jr., the president's son.
Well, Don and I are just hunting buddies. That's all. He's a good friend and a great guy, and one of my favorite people to be around. But the stories I always tell about him are, if you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't know who he was. He is one of these people that just seamlessly fits into hunting camp anywhere in the country. And I've seen him skin deer. I've seen him cook. I'll never forget. We were about six of us were at a little hunting lodge in South Dakota, and he was the only one that washed any dishes. So he's just a good guy, and I'm proud to call him a friend.
So your firm, Checkmate Government Relations, how old is it?
We're about 18 months old. We previously, my whole team and I were a part of a large law firm in North Carolina. We broke off and started our own firm there about a year ago, and then moved up here after the election.
So in that period of time, since President Trump was elected to another term, how many clients roughly have you taken on?
I think we've got about 40 or 50 so far.
Okay. And maybe we'll say maybe one. I think it's a matter of public disclosure. So you can probably say, what do your clients pay you? What's like the range to retain you?
It's within the range, 30,000 to 50,000 a month.
Right. So that's pretty good. I'm not great at math. Now, can you still hear me? I realize now my mic was, I'm not great at math, but hold on. I realize now I'm talking to you on the wrong mic. Here we go. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm not great at math, but that's doing pretty well for you, right?
Well, real estate's expensive up here.
Yeah. All right. Good point. What kind of industries are you representing?
Yes, sir. We've got a lot of stuff in the pharmaceutical space, which is, the whole healthcare sector, the whole healthcare industry has kind of been uprooted with Secretary Kennedy. So there's a lot to do in healthcare world. We have a number of Medicaid clients. We have a number of oil and gas, energy clients. We represent a couple of governments and folks on behalf of governments, and so really run the gamut from sports betting to Ozempic.
President Trump has talked a lot, both the first time he ran as president and now, about the energy. Wants to make America energy dominant and find more, export more. What do you see as the future of energy for this country?
Yes, sir. Well, I think the future is bright from an energy standpoint. This is an issue that, really from the public perspective, you only get the highlights. You get the drill, baby drill, and you get the, let's put a pipeline here, put a pipeline there. But as I've learned and digging into this industry, no pun intended, there's so much wealth for this country across the globe, whether it be Iraq, whether it be Venezuela. There's a lot going on in the energy sector and a lot of opportunity for America to have energy independence and for American companies to get a strong foothold across the world. And what the thing about energy is that energy security is national security. If we're able to control our resources and stop countries like China from getting those resources, that's an incredible thing for us. And I think it's something that this country has not taken very seriously, especially for the last 4 years. And it looks like President Trump's going to take that in a different direction.
How much time have you spent with President Trump?
I've been around him a number of times.
Yeah. And what's something that you've observed about him or about him that people who haven't met him might not realize, that you don't think is reflected necessarily in the media?
He is, I'll say two things. One is he is exactly the same. There's no show. He is exactly the same in private as he is on TV, and he is incredibly funny. And he is one of the funniest people I've ever been around. And for some reason, you just can't get to nuance, and you can't get it doesn't translate on TV. But in person, it's like you're with a stand-up comedian.
Okay. You have any clients who care about the reconciliation bill?
Most of them would like to see the government start thinking about something else, so they want to see it get done.
Right, so they can move on. All right. Well, here's the president. This is number 7, please. Talk on Capitol Hill today, talking about what he calls the BBB, Big Beautiful Bill.
Important for the country. It's not important for me. It's important for the country. This is the greatest bill that will ever I think it's the most important bill this country just about has ever done in terms of size and scope. That's why we call it the great, big, beautiful deal. I mean, it really is. The bill is, I think it's going to be one of the most important. It's the biggest tax reduction in history, biggest regulation reduction in history. Incredible for Medicaid, for Medicare. The only thing, we're going to leave it exactly as it was, other than for obviously waste, fraud, and abuse. We're strengthening it. We're going to make these things even stronger. The Democrats are going to destroy Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And we're going to keep them, but even make them strong.
All right. So I'm sure at least some of your clients ask you, as you said, they may not care about this bill, but they want to know its fate. What's your prognosis about whether this is going to pass the House, the Senate, and be signed into law? And if so, when?
Well, I'm not gonna tempt the speaker on timing, but what I'll say is the speaker is shown to be an incredible leader. I think that he got a rough go, kind of got thrown into the position, and but every time the speaker's been asked to deliver, he has. So I don't think this will be any different.
Do you know Ed Martin, Ches?
I know of Ed Martin.
Yeah. So I bet you and Ed know a lot of people in common. Counselor, welcome. Thank you for joining.
So I'm sorry I'm late. Thanks.
That's all right.
Yeah, great to be with you. I apologize. I'm in my new office and I messed up. Somehow I didn't get my computer quite right. So I hope you can hear me okay.
Hear you great. You're generous to join. We brought your colleague in because you're both experts on different points of the Trump administration. So I'm going to hopefully neither of your teams will object. I'm just going to bring you both in and we'll chat a little bit.
Sounds great.
All right. I want to talk to you about the Justice Department, but as folks who normally we do a lot of news at the top, and those of you who know my psyche know that there wasn't that much news today, which is why I'm delighted to have these two folks here, and we'll weave some more news in and out of the program. But I want to show you something which, for me, and I don't know how old Ed is. I think Ed's probably a little younger than me, maybe, and Ches, you're way younger. But I want to show you a clip, and I want you guys to get your guys' reaction because to me, that's the most important thing that happened today. Unfortunately, number 16, please.
Afternoon, everybody. No! How you doing, Norm? What do you know? Not enough. Norm? My nipples. It's freezing out there.
So, how was your Sunday there, Norm? You catch the Celtics 76ers game?
Oh, yes. And the Bruins Flyers. The Ramos fight. Yesterday, Australian rules football. Tomorrow we got Boston College versus Iona. Put that money down, pal.
Yeah, I'll be ready.
Norman, doesn't your wife ever complain that you never spend any time with her?
Would you?
All right, the great George Wendt passed away today. Very sad. Ed, I'm sure that means something to you. We'll see what Ches says because he probably.
You bet. I'm a Holy Cross man. So
Yeah.
we up in Worcester, we would go up to Boston, and obviously Cheers made Boston so popular. But that was a great show, and a lot of. I remember watching it with my father too. It was something that kind of united everything. It was great comedy. And now years later, we went up to Boston on a college tour for I think it was my son, and we went there. My wife and I took our kids there, and they didn't care at all. My wife and I loved it, but our kids were like, "Why are we in this place having a beer?" But it's great memories. Great guy, great actor.
Yeah, Ches, I bet you've never been to the Cheers bar in Boston Common, right?
Believe it or not, I have.
You have.
I was there for the Boston was playing in the NBA championships.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. I assumed you hadn't. Did you watch Cheers, or you're too young for that?
I watch reruns of Cheers, but I
Reruns,
think I'm closer to Ted Danson on Curb Your Enthusiasm than I am to Ted Danson on Cheers.
Yeah, Ted Danson's brilliant on Curb. Ed, where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey, a little town about 9 miles from Bedminster. Trump's Golf Club was owned at that time by John DeLorean. He owned that home, and DeLorean, before he crashed out on cocaine and a bad DeLorean Motor Company, he had that estate there. So I grew up it's called White House Station, a little town in New Jersey. And at my formative years were in high school in Jersey City. I took the train into Jersey City to go to a Jesuit high school there. So that was a big part of my life.
All right, I'm so glad you guys are on together, and I'll tell you what I think you have in common, and tell the audience as well. And again, if you want to get in on the conversation, please raise your hand. You both have gone to a great prominence in this administration, and for most Americans, this is the first time they're getting exposed to you in a prominent way. Certainly, Ches for sure, and you're both very well liked by a lot of people I know, and some probably the same. But it strikes me that Ed, you could use a Wall Street Journal profile like Jez got, just as a little bit of free advice. I know some of you. I know some of your folks, and you should hand them that Wall Street Journal profile and say, "I need a piece like this.
Yeah,
I need a piece like this."
I think so. I got the Washington Post treatment the last a month or so.
Yeah.
Every other day. I think a Wall Street Journal
Yeah.
profile will be good. I'll try that.
So, Ches, what I recommend to you is you get the pieces the Washington Post has written about Ed and show them to your PR people and say, "Don't ever let anybody write anything like this about me." So
Exactly.
you got different coverage. So Ed again was nominated to be the U.S. Attorney for Washington and has great support. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people I know in the administration who just said, "This is great. This is our guy. So glad he's in this important job." And then Republican senators, at least some Republican senators, had a different idea. And now you're in charge of pardons in the Justice Department, and you're in charge of this unit that's supposed to look at some of the recent past events where there's some concern about whether justice was done. Is that correct?
Yeah. There was a working group, weaponization working group. So it's exactly right. It's looking at some of the big issues that were weaponized government. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about what your enemies would call your failed nomination. But what's a Washington lesson you learned that you didn't know before about that story of president nominated you, lots of friends supported you, lots of Republican senators very enthusiastic, but not confirmed? What's the lesson there for you?
Well, one thing is the Senate process. It's a powerful process, right? If a senator wants to stand up to the president of the United States, like Tillis did on Trump, and President Trump, that process allows it. I used to joke and say every senator is like, if you're Catholic, it's like a bishop. You can not like him, but you can't really move him unless you want to. I mean, the Pope can say what he wants. He really can't move bishops too easily. They're sort of king of their own world, and same thing with the senators. So I will say this, Mark. I did 7 years of talk radio, and even long before that, I was out on the edges of politics in terms of positions, and I never thought I'd be confirmed, and I think I probably never can be. I mean, we didn't even get to the issues that I had taken positions on, let alone the times I talked about, Senator Cassidy's vote on the impeachment, or Senator Collins' a need for a primary and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of earned my enemies sort of fairly. I'm not particularly bitter about it. I think if I wanted to be confirmed, I'd have to go back 15 years and probably say a lot less, and it probably wasn't possible.
I want to follow up on that, but just say my dad was once nominated for a Senate confirmed position and didn't get confirmed, and then, like you, was given another job, non-confirmed job in administration. And I think anyone who goes through that, you want to do what you've done, which is avoid bitterness. It's just, as you said, it's the process, and senators can do what senators do, and sometimes they think they're co-equal branches. Hilarious as that is.
Exactly.
They do what they want. What advice would you give Ches about how to navigate to avoid that circumstance in the future, in case someday that he may want to be ambassador to the Bahamas? Should he stay off social media? Should he avoid controversial positions?
I think his advice is I shouldn't be on this podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's probably no. Look, I'll tell you the one thing that I would have done. The thing also that hurt me was the timeline, Mark. I mean, having to get in by 120 days, put a situation where it was, and so like Judge Janine Pirro, who is my replacement, I told her start today. She has 120 days. We kind of started late. Now we started late because I was behind all the cabinet secretaries, right? You weren't going to start ahead of that, but I think that when you gave them a deadline that they could play against the senators, it gave them a way to say, hey, we're not going to get it done. So if I were to do it again, starting as early as you can, avoid the deadline. But it's, Judge Janine Pirro has said more things about more people than I could ever dream of. And yet I think she'll get confirmed because she's a bigger name, and people will, I think, Tom Tillis already said she's immensely qualified and he'd vote for her. So I don't know if you can game it out too much.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation that her replacing you would set off a chain reaction, and I would get her seat on the 5. That hasn't happened yet, to my knowledge, but I'm waiting by the phone. All right, gentlemen, I want to run through some stuff in the news and just see what you think if you have thoughts on it. And if you don't, you can pass. This is Nancy Pelosi, and tweet number 9, please, today about the president's big piece of legislation. Republicans are charging ahead with their plan to rip health care from millions of people, take food from hungry children, and hand billions in tax breaks to the ultra-wealthy, all while adding trillions to the national debt. It is a cruel betrayal of hardworking families. Ches, what do you think of that?
It's the exact same thing I heard the last time there was a Republican budget, and none of those things happened. Leave it at that.
All right. Ed, are you able to comment on that from the
Yeah.
Justice Department?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I mean, look, remember when Paul Ryan, they drove Paul Ryan, he was pushing somebody off a cliff. They were running an ad, and they said like he's going to cut your Medicaid, old person. And there was a time where there were Republicans who actually wanted to. They said we're going to means test Social Security, all. But Donald Trump ran. The thing he changed was he ran the whole time saying he won't let it happen. He won't let it happen. He won't let it happen. I don't think that the voters believe Nancy Pelosi or the viewers in this moment, because Trump never got there. Now, and I don't think this budget does that, but it's not a believable kind of hit like it was in different times. I just don't think it works, and that they're reusing it says something still about. I mean, Pelosi, they're recycling this stuff in a way that isn't understanding the moment they're in.
Okay, here's another thing that happened today. The president, if you were with us on the morning meeting, you saw talked at length, 2 stops before he went into the meeting with the House conference, talked to the media, and he talked a lot about this issue of the Autopen. All presidents use Autopen, but there seems to be a sense in the Trump administration that Joe Biden, and this is something Ed, I think, is working on, that Joe Biden used the or people used the Autopen to sign things on Joe Biden's behalf, including pardons that may be not legally, constitutionally permissible if it wasn't actually the president and it was some robot or whatever you call the Autopen. So here's number 3. This is a Truth Social post from the president about this topic. And again, he talked about it at length this morning. Joe Biden was not for open borders. He never talked about open borders. We're criminals of all kinds. All right, blah, blah, blah. Go through the process. It was the people that knew he was cognitively impaired and took that, and that took over the Autopen. They stole the president's of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level. So, Ed, where did this start, this notion that the Autopen was improperly used, and what evidence have you seen for the president's accusation?
Well, I'll make a little news for you, Mark, here. I was in the office as U.S. Attorney for about 5 days when I wrote to a number of senior Biden officials in the White House saying, what did you know about Joe Biden's competence and the pardons? And I got some responses. And so I've been looking at this for a while. Again, I think that the question is more about competence. If you have someone who's not competent, they can't enter into a contract, right? And if you do enter into a contract, you've committed fraud. The question is whether you use a tool to trick people into entering into a fraud. So the Biden pardons are unprecedented. The ones right before Christmas that he did, people forget this. I think it's a couple thousand pardons that were done. Did he know about that? Did he really understand? Look, the pardon power is plenary, but the guy has to be competent to do it. Now you come forward to this question broadly of the Autopen. Autopen's completely obviously legal if you're competent, and there must be a trail that shows who was in charge of the Autopen. I know this exists. Like, I worked for a governor. We had a system for an Autopen to be able to use it. And so right now we have unprecedented conduct, the pardons, unprecedented admissions, the books, as well as the staffers. I had a whistleblower in my office 10 days ago, senior Democrat, saying, look, it was these 3 people that controlled access and they were making money off of it. I don't know if I believe it yet, but the point is, I think we have to get to the bottom of it for the American people and to protect the process, and that's what we're doing. And by the way, make it all the way to the bottom. It may not be criminal, but it certainly should be a scandal of the first order, maybe in human history, or maybe American history. I sound like the president there, but in American history, to have this kind of conduct.
Ed, I'm from Maryland, not North Carolina, so I'm not that bright. Did I miss what the news was? You said you'd make news. What was the news you made?
The news was that nobody knows until that I was writing to these folks at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and including the Biden family. I don't think anybody has seen that. So my point is, I'm bragging about being there early. Everybody got to this 120 days later.
Did they reply, or you just sent them letters?
No, they didn't.
What'd they say?
Well, a couple of them lawyered up, and one of them wrote directly. I won't talk about what they said.
And can you and you probably won't tell us, but can you characterize who the whistleblower was? It someone who worked in the Biden White House?
Biden campaign, 2020 campaign at the highest levels.
2020, and who are the 3 people they said were doing it for money?
This is the one who's let me say it carefully. Yeah. The gatekeepers. Different characterization of who was using the access, but the gatekeepers were Klain and Anita Dunn and Bob Bauer, and those 3 were really dominant characters in the White House. Ricchetti a little bit, and obviously Jill, but I think that was the the three. I was with this person, and I said, "What about Susan Rice? What about some of these others?" And they said, "No, these were the ones."
Okay, I will politely and gently tell you his name is pronounced Ricchetti.
Oh, okay.
Soft, just so you know.
Just so I know. Okay,
so you know.
I'll make sure if I meet
Okay.
him, I'll get it right.
Okay, he's a very nice guy. I think you'd like him if you met him. Ches, what's your view of all these stories about President Biden and his cognitive abilities and the her tapes, et cetera? Like, what's your general sense of how that fits into American history?
Well, I am a lawyer. I'm not a good one. I'm certainly not a DOJ lawyer, so I don't know that I could add anything to that. But I can say, as just as an American and just as a citizen, I think it's a level of trust that even if the Autopen is legal, even if it's allowable, it just doesn't feel right that official government documents are not being signed by the President of the United States, that where he's directed to in the Constitution. So I think it's a matter of trust. I think with the horrible cancer news, there's going to be a lot more questions and a lot more medical experts weighing in on what was being hid from us, what should we have known, things like that. And so frankly, I'm just glad that people like Ed Martin are on the case.
All right, I'm going to show you two pieces of video from today in Washington, D.C. One I'd say symbolizes tension and conflict and polarization, and one that signifies joy. We'll end on joy, and then we're going to take your questions for these two gentlemen. So if you got questions about Trump 2.0, I might ask them a few more things about where people eat in Washington now, but we'll get to that. But then your questions. So please, if you want to be in the conversation, raise your hand. All right, this is Marco Rubio, former senator, now Secretary of State. A lot of Democrats voted to confirm Secretary Rubio, their former colleague, and they've turned, many of them who voted yes, now are saying they regret the vote. Here's a particularly pointed manifestation of that point of view. This is Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, who is, of course, the one who went down to bring the El Salvador man back to the United States, but failed. Here's Chris Van Hollen and Secretary Rubio at a hearing today, number 13.
And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask.
Senator, please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well.
All right, here's another exchange. Same two gentlemen, Rubio and Van Hollen. This is number 12, please.
Case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come, you're going to see who you went to defend.
Senator,
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary
No.
Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You've had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the
Senator,
United States because
well,
he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge and the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy.
All right, so Ches, when you're sitting around at one of your fancy steakhouses ordering an extra margarita or perhaps martini, and the topic turns to Secretary Rubio, how are people in your world feeling about Secretary Rubio these days?
To sum it up, that's exactly what we voted for.
Yeah.
If there's anybody in Washington, D.C., I'm going to go toe-to-toe with about policy, it's not going to be him.
Yeah.
I think it's the trap that the president has incredibly laid once again, that the Democrats have taken hook, line, and sinker, is we're going to make you defend MS-13, and they keep doing it. They keep taking the bait, and Secretary Rubio is doing a phenomenal job. It's just the general feeling as an American, as a Trump supporter, that's exactly what we voted for.
Ed, I want to find a campaign school where they say you want to defend trans athletes playing women's sports for as long as you can, but when that seems tapped out, you want to start defending gang members.
Yeah. Well, but let me pause on. I go back to the one thing. Marco Rubio, Mark, you'll remember it well. I mean, again, we're a little older. Remember when he burst on the scene in 2009 and 10, that cycle, and he was the master communicator. I can still picture that first video he did, and now he's got his sea legs on this international stuff. I agree. He is extraordinary right now as a communicator, as a sort of personality. I was actually at an event last night where President Trump and Marco Rubio were, and the president was praising Marco Rubio, like, and joking about how they went toe to toe and he's a tough cookie and all that stuff. And then Rubio spoke. He's just masterful. I think you're right. The comment that he's really kind of coming to his own on policy too. But no, look, it's amazing. 80-20. The line right now is that the Democrats keep picking the 20% issue, and Trump keeps picking the 80%, and it seems to happen over and over. And Rubio may be benefiting most of all. I mean, President Trump last night was talking about how gasoline prices are going to be the lowest they've been in 20 years, and inflation and the feel of things is different than it's been and just a few months ago.
So Ed, before you got here, Ches, I asked him what he knows about President Trump that maybe isn't widely known, and he said what you see is what you get in private and in public, and that he's a very funny guy. What would your answer to the question be? What's something you observed about the president you think is a little understood?
I actually think he's got a real heart for kids. I've been in a setting about half a dozen times where there's been kids there, and he will, especially family members, children. He's really good at kind of giving kids, and I've seen him do something where he talks to kids about how they're going to have a great life. He's got this kind of a soft spot for kind of saying the right things to kids. And I met his roommate from the military academy and back in the day. And I asked him about this point, and he said he's always sort of had that. He was a leader back then. He's got this sort of leadership thing. And I think with kids, it's really interesting. I found it pretty kind of touching.
All right. Speaking of which, go ahead, Jess.
I got to second that. I've got 3 kids that were around the president, and it was a pretty funny story. We're at a rally, and they showed these videos ahead of the rally, and one of the videos was a WWE clip of President Trump shaving Vince McMahon's head. And I remember when that happened. But we were watching that. My whole family, my son is, my youngest son was 3. So we go get in line, and there's, all these Secret Services, very unusual to him. He's not been around anything like this. And he starts kind of getting a little nervous. And I've been practicing with him all day, smile, thumbs up, smile, thumbs. We've been practicing all day. And he kind of starts freaking out. And I said, buddy, what's wrong? And he said, well, I don't want Mr. Trump to shave my head. So he had thought that we were coming to get a haircut. So we go in there behind the curtain with the president, and just, he goes from meeting with the law enforcement officers, meeting with military officers, just immediately flips the switch, and he's got 2 7-year-olds and a 3-year-old, and they were just as comfortable as can be. And he just has a way to connect with them. You're exactly right, Ed. He just has a way to connect with children, and really is just a grandpa.
How old are your kids now, Chess?
8, 8, and 4.
8, 8, and 4. Are the 8-year-olds twins?
Yes, sir.
All right, just checking. I'm not that familiar with biology. All right. Speaking of which, talked about the president and kids. Number 14, the last video I wanted to play before we turn to our community. This is the president at the White House today. Take your kids to work day. I thought we saw more of the dancing. All right, well, you get the point. He danced to the instrumental YMCA. All right, last couple questions for me. Where's a hot place to eat in D.C. now if you want to be around people from MAGA, Trump folks? Where do you go, Ches? What's a recommendation you'd make to folks?
I don't know if I can give that out. That's probably
just one of your secret speakeasies.
Yeah, I can't have all these other lobbyists showing up.
Yeah. Okay, Ed, where do you go?
Well, what's you're gonna kill me, guys. He's gonna kill me. Raheem Kassam opened that restaurant up on that. I call it Magaworth's. Because that's the place for
Butterworth, right? That's
Butterworth. Yeah, that's the place for MAGA. But on the other side of the hill, that Bistro Cacao, I can't say it. I don't like to admit that I'm eating at a foreign food. That's the place I go to for good food. But I'm not sure it's a party place. I'm too old.
Yeah. Ches, have you been to Butterworth's?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I haven't been yet, because I don't spend much time in DC, because unlike you guys, I can't handle it. But if I come down, can I buy you 2 dinner there?
Yeah,
absolutely.
perfect.
They got a great grilled cheese.
Great grilled cheese. All right. Again, very grateful to you both. one last question, I promise, then I'm going to bring the folks in. Ed, what's something about the culture of Trump 2.0? Just sort of the, when you're out socializing or at events, what's something about the culture of it that you find distinctive that if you were de Tocqueville or David Halberstam, you would say, here's something about the culture?
Well, sometimes I'm not joking when I say part of how you see it is what you feel. I think it's got more joy and energy, like really joy about it than you'd expect in terms of some of the intensity of the issues. I mean, there's guys like, and I'll drop names a little bit, like a guy like Vince Haley, if you know that name. He's a big player on the inside. He's just a joyful guy. A guy like Russ Vought, he's got this image as a budget guy. He's got a real dry sense of humor. You down through. I know OMB well because I was there until the day before the inauguration. So I know there's a lot of just really interesting, joyful people there's a kind of energy to it, and there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot that you're afraid of, and you're worried about all kinds of things in the sense of policy successes or failures, reconciliation, big beautiful bill. But there's a real, I think there's a kind of a joy and a esprit de corps about the time. I'm now over in Main Justice, and I'm these massive hallways and all, and there's all these kids. They're younger than me, but these young people, and it's got a lot of positive energy, and I think that starts with the president's kind of vibe. You feel it, and I like to laugh, and I think there's more funny, interesting things going on that are real. I mean, uproariously funny, that make me smile. Trump is a natural comedian, so I'd say that's a part of what you'd feel.
Yeah, Ed, I totally agree. And I think it's, again, people who don't like the president may say, oh, it's not true, or who cares, focus on his evil policies from their point of view. But I couldn't agree with you more. The Clinton, to me, it's like Clinton 93, when President Clinton first came in. There's just this level of joy and lightness, even though the issues are serious and there's a lot of hard work. There's just a lot of happy socializing and upbeat, and a lot of people just with a great sense of humor and really interested in experiencing life in a joyful way. Joy's the right word. And of course, ironic, since the president's opponent in the general election ran on joy. Turns out she didn't have a monopoly on there. Chess, I want to ask you this, and then again, we're going to the group. You've had an incredible amount of success as a lobbyist in a very short period of time. I know people who've been lobbyists for 50 years, and they've been waiting for the Wall Street Journal to write that puff piece about them. So how are you treated when you're at your fancy restaurants with the other lobbyists? Are they treating you well, like welcome to the club? Or are they like, how's this guy stealing our bacon?
Well, there's a lobbyist told me I showed up here right after the election and kind of said, I'm gonna do this thing, and I was expecting the same reception I got in North Carolina, which was everybody throwing a knife, and we still persevered and built the biggest firm there. But I said, I'm used to this. I'm the young kid on the block. I know how it's going to be. And he said, no, DC is a game of addition, not subtraction. So I will say that there's a small group of lobbyists in this town that are true MAGA believers, and they've been phenomenal to try to increase the number of MAGA lobbyists. And really, that's what has to happen for the MAGA movement to continue past this president, is that folks on this side, on K Street, really bring support to the president. And so, we're happy. They're happy to welcome me. I'm happy to be up here. Now, certainly the ones that I'm calling out for being lazy and for taking people's money for all these years and not producing results, they don't like me as much. There was one guy in some article who said, well, these guys are in a different market. All they do is make phone calls and set up meetings. And my response to that was, yeah, and we get to meetings. And so, this is an easy business. You just got to be honest, which everybody, laughs about that because we're lobbyists. But really, you have to be honest, you have to be trustworthy, and you have to work hard. And it's a simple business.
Are you saying I might be a little bit too trusting when I believe the Romney and Bush people who tell me they're pure MAGA? Tell me I should be maybe a
I'd
little
like to see their credentials.
Little skeptical. All right, Karen, welcome in. Thank you for your patience and for being part of Two-Way. Please unmute. Questions for these two MAGA tour guides, Trump 2.0 Sherpas.
Hey, hi. Thank you very much. I am from Chicago.
According to President Trump, you have the worst governor in America.
We have a pretty bad mayor too. So, and I heard him make reference this morning about JB. I'm one of only a few conservatives in the city of Chicago, so it's a lot of fun. So I also am in the aging business. I was in senior care for 13 years. I had my own agency and provided care for many people. It was sizable here in Chicago. So this whole thing with Biden is really, it speaks really hard and touching to me, actually, because when I listened to her tapes, it was really, it just broke my heart in a lot of ways, because I know that when people have a huge event in their life, like when his son died, that can trigger cognitive issues at that moment that just continue to get worse.
Yeah.
Now, I know that perhaps he might have some sort of therapies for this prostate cancer, but I guess my concern, and it speaks to what you were saying, Ed, the competency issue. You can't, if in fact they prove that he was incompetent at the time, that he was signing executive orders and that he was making decisions, how legally does that, what happens with that?
Yeah.
Because in my business, that was something that we were very aware of.
Yeah, great question, Karen. Thank you. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, let me make a couple connections. My wife is a geriatrics internal medicine physician, so she used to talk about Joe Biden, and she would say all the time, you can see he's cognitively impaired, and it was getting worse, and it doesn't get better, it doesn't pick up, and all. And so a lot of people like you, like the questioner, would have seen this and said, "What's going on?" And by the way, you may have J.B. Pritzker and a bad mayor, but you got the Pope, and you know. That's a pretty good deal, pretty good trade there. You got and he looks like a pretty good Pope, I have to say. But what made me think of that, to take it full circle, is John Paul II, when he died, gave us a lesson in how to die and to live out the end of your life, and with Parkinson's and all. It was very dramatic. And we got the opposite with Joe Biden. We got, and I'm being totally frank, we got how you can take advantage of your loved one by people around. And we, as you know, my wife would say, the gray tsunami. We're in the middle of the gray tsunami. We're going to live unbelievably long, wonderful things, but we're going to have an epidemic of loneliness. We're going to have.
Did we lose Ed?
We lost him.
Ed, we lost your audio. Ed, can you hear me? We lost Ed's audio. All right. Karen, thank you for coming in. Grateful to you. And we'll see if we can get Ed back. I'm sorry we're missing all this great stuff he's saying. Ed, we lost your audio. We missed the last few things he said.
Oh, it was so profound, Mark.
I know.
I'm sorry about that.
Lost to history.
Yeah, but well, and NSA will deliver it later, Mark. I'll tell him. I'll send it over. But let me just say on the legal part of this real quickly, it's not clear that how you unravel a lot of this. It's unprecedented. It is a kind of constitutional crisis. I do think, as to the pardons, there could be a question of misconduct by somebody that orchestrated it. But I don't know what you do if somebody signs a law or an executive order as president and you're going back to litigate it. I really don't know that you can do it. But I think we have some responsibility to try to figure it out.
Yeah. I want to give you a little bit of news that broke shortly as we were coming on the air about President Biden. And then, Ed, I want to ask you about pardons. Michael Shearer of the New York Times, Biden's spokesperson, says his last known PSA test was in 2014. Prior to Friday, President Trump had never been diagnosed with prostate cancer. So they're saying that this was not something he was secretly being treated for, which some had speculated about. And I question why he hadn't had a test in 11 years. That seems odd, but maybe they'll provide more information. I've asked them to provide a lot more information to kind of clear up the mystery of the sequence of events. Ed, are you in charge now of processing President Trump's pardons?
All the pardon. Well, the pardon power can go right from the president, right? I mean, the president could do. Generally, the process in the current way it works is pardons start in our office. they go to the DAG, the Deputy Attorney General, who has to look at it, and then they go to the White House counsel. I actually think, I don't know why we have 3 different stops before the president, but that is the process. So, but all of them are originating with us. And Alice Johnson, this famous, wonderful lady, is the pardon czar, and I work closely with her. So we are. It's funny, Mark, and now we're talking DC. All of a sudden, people that didn't know my name when I was U.S. Attorney are calling me up because they got a friend who happens to be a multimillionaire who wants a pardon of whatever or whatever. And but we also have this massive number of applicants of people who are usually currently incarcerated, who have, served 20 years and they've model prisoner and they'd like to get a break. And so it's a really interesting position. But yes, we are processing them.
So President Clinton famously did some pardons at the end of his administration that were not properly vetted. And President Clinton, like President Trump, attitude was and is like, just because Washington did something one way doesn't mean we have to do it that way, right? And that's a good attitude to kind of reevaluate. But there is a logic, not just people on the left and not just stuffy lawyers would say. The president has the absolute power, the only absolute power in the Constitution. Even I know that. I'm the only non-lawyer here, but it seems like there's some value to having somebody like you in an office that can review the folders and the merits and look at precedent. And yet we had President Biden doing a bunch of pardons that were not vetted in the normal way, and President Trump now has done some, and there's talk that he may do more. So Ed, from a public policy point of view, take the politics out of it, and if you can, put aside your fidelity to the president for a moment. Doesn't it make sense to have some process that's orderly rather than just the president saying, hey, I got a call from my friend, his son's in prison, I want to get him out?
Yeah, for sure. Look, and also, Mark, because government's so much bigger, it's better for the public and the citizens to have predictability, right? To understand how the process works. It's more, Mark, I've been using a phrase for a few months now. I said, when Reagan said trust and verify, now today regarding our government, it's distrust and verify. The starting point is too much distrust. I think predictability, having a process that everybody can see and understand is good. I don't know whether you need 3 or 4 stops along the way. I don't know whether you need that much, but I agree with you. And I think as a matter of also, cover your tail, you want to do it in a way that you can say this is really defensible and smart. And by the way, Mark, though, let me give a little bit of news. People aren't paying attention. The Pardon Office now is the place where we will, in the next 18 months, return the Second Amendment rights to a universe of Americans who lost them, and over the last however many years. And the pool is 25 million people. Probably most of those won't be eligible, but you'll be able to apply for your Second Amendment rights and get them back. And watch me now, before November of 2026, you'll have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people getting back their Second Amendment rights out of this office. That's something that's been a law for a long time that we're implementing.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. James, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, after you unmute, what's on your mind for our 2 guests.
Thanks for calling on me. We've been watching this show since last September. I'm from Louisiana, a 3-time Trump supporter. I also serve as an elected alderman of a very small town, so I deal constantly with federal grants and all this kind of stuff. I realize the amount of money that's coming down from Washington, D.C. and how we get it.
James, are you in the market for either a D.C. lobbyist or a pardon?
Well, in Louisiana, there's always a need for a pardon if you're in Louisiana politics.
Yeah. All right, just trying to make a connection if possible, but I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, Chaz, Don Jr. comes to Louisiana a lot. I don't hunt with him. I've never met him. I am a hunter, but I know people who have, and he is exactly what you said he was. He is just a guy he's a guy at the hunting camp. He really is. So I think he's well liked.
I've hunted in Louisiana with Don. I killed a big
duck,
one he did that day. I don't get many ups on the president's son, but I'll take them where I can get them.
Yeah, probably duck hunting, I'm assuming.
We're duck hunting and shot a couple deer. We're at Honey Break.
Okay. Oh, you on the Mississippi over there. Okay. My question to both of you is, this is something I've really been wanting to ask since last September. I'm in Mike Johnson's district, and I'm actually new to that district because of the the gerrymandering. Frankly, that's the case that is currently going on now, the Supreme Court with the gerrymandered district. But I've been very concerned about not the Senate, of course, not President Trump, but about the House of Representatives. I think Congressman Johnson has done an amazing job to get anything with basically a 3 to 4 vote margin. And do you think the Republican Party, do you think the Trump Political Action Committee is how I'm going to call that? Do you think they are committed to try to build that majority to at least give them a 10 vote margin? Because I don't want to accept the fact that, the first midterm election, the party in power always loses power, because I don't think he can afford to do that.
Great question, James. Jess, what do you think about the midterms and the Trump political operation?
Well, there's two great North Carolinians involved in the midterms, Michael Whatley and Richard Hudson, who's NRCC chairman. Both of them, I have incredible amount of faith and confidence in their ability to change history. But, this administration so far, for the first however many days, has not been historical. They've appointed more people. They've got more stuff done. They've cut more from the budget, cut more waste. So I don't see that there's any reason to just give away the midterms to say, well, this is how it's been done historically. This is how it's going to be this time. Because I think, I live in rural North Carolina. I don't live in the swamp. I don't, I go home on the weekends and talk to real people who actually have souls and hearts and,
Wait a second.
Of course there's exceptions, but I live in that part of the world, and that part of the world is very excited. There's no fatigue. They just want to see it keep going. And I've got to believe that the rest of the country is seeing what the folks where I live are seeing. And so I'm just certainly not willing to resign to the fact that we're going to lose because we've lost before. Or because the president's party has lost before. But, again, a lot of faith in people like Michael Whatley and Richard Hudson to do great things.
Right. And then an article was shared with me that said President Trump is very committed to doing that. And I just want to make sure, because I think we're pretty good in the Senate, but we really need to not just retain it. We need to build that margin. And I'm a big fan of Chip Roy and Thomas Massey. I really am. But, we still need a few additional seats. So I hope they're able to do that. Hope to raise the money and organize the effort and find the candidates to do that.
James, thank you. I will say, in my experience, Ed, North Carolinians are a lot like Texans. They like everybody else in America, but they know they're just a little bit better than the rest of us.
I think that sounds right.
I'm grateful to you both. We got to end a little bit early tonight for some technical reasons, but I'll just say I couldn't have enjoyed having you both on more. I look forward to our dinner, and I like to have different kind of conversations here. And Ed, usually when he goes in front of the media, he's either being attacked or slobbered over. And I try to have a different point of view. And Chaz, I could have enjoyed having you on more. And like I said, I know so many people who speak highly of you. And again, even if you don't like President Trump or agree with his agenda, I think it's pretty clear why you've been so successful at a relatively young age. So grateful to you both. Thank you for coming on, and hope you'll come back whenever you got something you want to talk about.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, folks, just to tell you about a few things. My podcast on the Megyn Kelly Network, next up, the audio version's dropped. The video version will be on YouTube before probably most of you go to sleep. I do a little bit of a reported monologue on why there's reason to doubt the Biden's truthfulness on a range of issues. And then a long conversation with my friend Joe Scarborough, the kind of conversation he and I have had in private for a long time about Joe Biden's mental acuity. And I'd be grateful if you take a listen or a look at that. In a moment, 7 o'clock Eastern time, my colleague, let me just put the graphic up here, Michael Moynihan's program, The Moynihan Report, against Olivia Reingold of the Free Press. That'll be live right here on YouTube, on Two-Way, and on the Moynihan Report on YouTube. And then also you'll be able to join it if you know how to join our platform and ask questions of Michael and Olivia Reingold. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, Sean Dan and I will be back for the morning. Or sorry, no, Sean's off this week. Larry, if you've been watching, Larry, we love Larry, has President Trump would say, "Oh, Larry, we love Larry. Larry's excellent." Larry and Dan and I will be back. And again, I want to keep telling you, we announced 3 new shows this morning, and I want to make sure that everybody's ready for our programs. Coming up, we got a graphic for Bridget.
Yes.
Here we go. Real America with Bridget Fetisi. Bridget is an incredible comedian and writer and podcaster, and she's got a way better set than I do. This is just my bedroom. But Bridget is going to be a huge part of two-way, and really welcome you Wednesday, 7 o'clock to watch her program. And again, she's such a talent. I've known her a long time, and I'm always amazed at how impressive she is as a thinker and how hilarious she is. So Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, right after two-way tonight, Bridget Fetisi's Real America. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to our 2 great guests, and I'll see you at 9 a.m. Tomorrow morning on the morning meeting. Have a great night.